Called the Rosetta Stone of Planets by Dr. Jastrow, the first chairman of NASA's Lunar Exploration Committee, scientists had hoped by studying the composition of the moon to resolve some of the mysteries of how our planet and solar system came into existence. However, 6 moon landings later, scientist Earl Ubell declared, "The lunar Rosetta Stone remains a mystery. The moon is more complicated than anyone expected. It is not simply a kind of billiard ball frozen in space and time, as many scientists had believed. Few of the fundamental questions have been answered, but the Apollo rocks and recordings have spawned scores of mysteries, a few truly breath-stopping. Among these breath-stopping mysteries, or anomalies as scientists prefer to call them, is the fact that the moon is far older than previously imagined, perhaps even much older than the Earth and Sun. By examining tracks burned into the moon's rocks by cosmic rays, scientists have dated them as billions of years old. Some have been dated back to 4.5 billion years, far older than the Earth, and nearly as old as the solar system. The moon has at least 3 distinct layers of rock. Contrary to the idea that heavier objects sink, the heavier rocks are found on the surface. And there is a definite disparity in the distribution of minerals. Ubell asked, if the Earth and Moon were created at the same time, near each other, why has one body got all the iron, the Earth, and the other, the Moon, not much? Asked Ubell. The differences suggest that Earth and the Moon came into being far from each other, an idea that stumbles over an inability of astrophysicists to explain how exactly the Moon became a satellite of Earth. The Moon is extremely dry and does not appear to have ever had any water in substantial amounts. None of the moon rocks, regardless of where they were found, contained free water or even water molecules bound into the minerals. Yet, Apollo 16 astronauts found moon rocks that contained bits of rusted iron. Since oxidation requires oxygen and free hydrogen, this rust indicates there must have been water somewhere on the moon. Furthermore, instruments left behind by Apollo missions sent a signal to Earth on March 7, 1971, indicating a wind of water had crossed the moon's surface. Since any water on the airless moon surface vaporizes and behaves like the wind on Earth, the question became, where did this water originate? The vapor cloud eruptions lasted 14 hours and covered an area of some 100 square miles, prompting Rice University physicist John Freeman Jr. and Dr. H. Ken Hills to pronounce the event one of the most exciting discoveries yet, indicating water within the moon. The two physicists claimed that the water vapor came from deep inside the moon, apparently released during a moonquake. NASA officials offered a more mundane, questionable explanation. They speculated that the 2 tanks on Apollo descent stages containing between 60 and 100 pounds of water became stressed and ruptured, releasing their contents. Freeman and Hills declined to accept this explanation, pointing out that the 2 tanks from Apollo 12 and 14 were some 180 kilometers apart, yet the water vapor was detected with the same flux at both sites, although the instruments faced in opposite directions. Skeptics also have understandably questioned the odds of 2 separate tanks breaking simultaneously and how such a small quantity of water could produce 100 square miles of vapor. Moon rocks were found to be magnetized, not strong enough to pick up any paperclip, but magnetic nevertheless. However, there is no magnetic field on the moon itself. So where did the magnetism come from? The presence of Maria, or large seas of smooth, solidified, molten rock, also presented a mystery. These Maria indicated nothing less than a vast outpouring of lava at some distant time. It has now been confirmed that some of the moon's craters are of internal origin. Yet there are no indications that the moon has ever been hot enough to produce volcanic eruptions. Another puzzle is that almost all, 4/5 of the Maria, are located on the moon's Earth-side hemisphere. Few Maria marks on the far side of the moon, often erroneously referred to as the dark side. Yet the far side contains many more craters and mountainous areas. In comparison to the rest of the moon, the Maria are relatively free of craters, suggesting that craters were covered by lava flow. Adding to this mystery, the mascons, large, dense circular masses lying 20 to 40 miles below the center of the moon's Maria. The mascons were discovered because their denseness distorted the orbits of our spacecraft flying over or near them. One scientist proposed that the mascons are heavy iron meteorites that plunged deep into the moon while it was soft and formable. This theory has been discounted, since meteorites strike with such high velocities they would vaporize on contact. Another mundane explanation is that the mascons are nothing more than lava-filled craters. Skeptics say there isn't enough lava present to accomplish this. It would seem that these mascons are huge, disc-shaped objects, possibly of artificial construction. It is unlikely that large circular discs, located directly under the center of the Maria like giant bullseyes, happened by accident or coincidence. Between 1969 and 1977, Apollo missions' seismographic equipment registered 3,000 moonquakes each year of operation. Most of the vibrations were quite small and were caused by meteorite strikes or falling booster rockets. But many other quakes were detected deep inside the moon. This internal creaking is believed to be caused by the gravitational pull of our planet, as most moonquakes occur when the moon is closest to Earth. An event occurred in 1958 in the moon's Alphonsus crater, which shook the idea that all internal moonquake activity was simply settling rocks. In November of that year, Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kozyrev of the Crimean Astrophysical Observatory startled the scientific world by photographing the first recorded gaseous eruption on the moon near the crater's peak. Kozyrev attributed this to escaping fluorescent gases. He also detected a reddish glow characteristic of carbon compounds, which seemed to move and disappear after an hour. Some scientists refused to accept Kozyrev's findings until astronomers at the Lowell Observatory also saw reddish glows on the crests of ridges in the Aristarchus region in 1963. Days later, colored lights on the moon, lasting more than an hour, were reported at two separate observatories. Something was going on inside the volcanically dead moon, and whatever it was, it occurs the same way at the same time. As the moon moves closer to the Earth, seismic signals from different stations on the lunar surface detect identical vibrations. It is difficult to accept this movement as natural phenomenon. For example, a broken artificial hull plate could shift exactly the same way each time the moon passed near the Earth. There is this evidence to indicate the moon may be hollow. Studies of moon rocks indicate the moon's interior differs from the mantle on Earth in many ways, suggesting a very small or even non-existent core. As far back as 1962, NASA scientist Gordon MacDonald stated, "If astronomical data are reduced, it is found that the data required that the interior of the moon be less dense than the outer parts. Indeed, it would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than homogeneous sphere." Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, while scoffing at the possibility of a hollow moon, nevertheless admitted that since heavier materials were on the surface, it is quite possible that giant caverns exist within the moon. MIT's Dr. Sean C. Solomon, the lunar orbiter experiments vastly improved our knowledge of the moon's gravitational field, indicating that frightening possibility that the moon might be hollow. Why frightening? The significance was stated by astronomer Carl Sagan way back in his 1966 work, Intelligent Life in the Universe. A natural satellite cannot be a hollow object. The most startling evidence that the moon could be hollow came on November 20th, 1969, when Apollo 12 crew, after returning their command ship, sent the lunar module ascent stage crashing back onto the moon, creating an artificial moonquake. The LM struck the surface about 40 miles from the Apollo 12 landing site, where ultra-sensitive seismic equipment recorded something both unexpected and astounding. The moon reverberated like a bell for more than an hour. The vibration wave took almost 8 minutes to reach peak, then decreased in intensity. At a news conference that day, one of the co-directors of the seismic experiment, Maurice Ewing, told reporters that scientists were at a loss to explain the ringing. As for the meaning of it, I'd rather not make an interpretation right now. But it is as though someone had struck a bell, say, in the belfry of a church, a single blow, and found that the reverberation from it continued for 30 minutes. It was later established that the small vibrations had continued on the moon for more than an hour. The phenomenon was repeated when Apollo 13's third stage was sent crashing onto the moon by radio command, striking with the equivalent of 11 tons of TNT. According to NASA, this time the moon reacted like a gong. Although seismic equipment was more than 108 miles from the crash site, recordings showed reverberations that lasted for 3 hours and 20 minutes and traveled to a depth of 22 to 25 miles. Subsequent studies of man-made crashes on the moon yielded similar results. After one impact, the moon reverberated for 4 hours. This ringing, coupled with the density problem on the moon, reinforces the idea of a hollow moon. Scientists hope to record the impact of a meteor large enough to send shockwaves to the moon's core and back to settle the issue. That opportunity came on May 13, 1972, when a large meteor struck the moon with the equivalent force of 200 tons of TNT. After sending shockwaves deep into the interior of the moon, scientists were baffled to find that none returned, confirming that there's something unusual about the moon's core, or lack thereof. Dr. Farouk El-Baz was quoted as saying, "There are many undiscovered caverns suspected to exist beneath the surface of the moon. Several experiments have been flown to the moon to see if there are actually such caverns. The results of these experiments have not been made public. It seems apparent that the moon has a tough, hard outer shell and a light, non-existent interior. The moon's shell contains dense materials such as titanium used on Earth in the construction of aircraft and space vehicles. Many people still recall watching our astronauts on TV as they vainly tried to drill through the crust of a moon Maria. Their specially designed drills could only penetrate a few inches. The puzzle of the moon's hard surface was compounded by the discovery of what appeared to be processed metals. Experts were surprised to find lunar rocks bearing brass, mica, and amphibole, in addition to near-perfect titanium. Uranium-236 and Neptunium-237, elements not previously found in nature, were discovered in moon rocks, according to the Argonne National Laboratory. While still trying to explain the presence of these materials, scientists were further startled to learn of rust-proof iron particles in a soil sample from the Sea of Crisis. In 1976, the Associated Press reported that the Soviets had announced the discovery of iron particles that do not rust in samples brought back by an unmanned moon mission in 1970. Iron that does not rust is unknown in nature and well beyond present Earth technology. Undoubtedly, the greatest mystery concerning our moon is how it came to be there in the first place. Prior to the Apollo missions, one serious theory as to the moon's origin was that it broke off of Earth eons ago, although no one could positively locate where on Earth it originated. Many speculated the loss of material explains the huge gouge in the Earth, which forms the Pacific Ocean. However, this idea was discarded when it was found that there is little similarity between the composition of our world and the moon. A more recent theory had the moon created out of space debris left over from the creation of Earth. This concept proved untenable in light of current gravitational theory, which indicates that one large object will accumulate all loose material, leaving none for the formation of another large body. It is now generally accepted that the moon originated elsewhere, entered the Earth's gravitational field at some point in the distant past. Here, theories diverge. One stating that the moon was originally a planet which collided with Earth, creating debris which combined, forming the moon, while another states the moon, while wandering through our solar system, was captured and pulled into orbit by Earth's gravity. Neither of these theories are especially compelling because of the lack of evidence that neither the Earth nor the moon seem to have been physically disrupted by a past close encounter. There is no debris in space indicating a past collision, and it does not appear that the Earth and the moon developed during the same time period. As for the capture theory, even scientist Isaac Asimov, well known for his works of fiction, has written, "It's too big to have been captured by Earth. The chances of such a capture having been effected, and the moon then having taken up nearly circular orbit around our Earth are too small to make such an eventuality credible." Asimov was right to consider the moon's orbit. It is not only nearly a perfect circle, but stationary. One side always facing the Earth with only the slightest variation. As far as we know, it's the only natural satellite with such an orbit. This circular orbit is especially odd considering that the moon's center of mass lies more than a mile closer to the Earth than its geometric center. This fact should alone produce an unstable, wobbly orbit, much as a ball with its mass off-center will not roll in a straight line. Additionally, almost all other satellites in our solar system orbit in the plane of their planet's equator. Not so the moon. Those orbits lie strangely near the Earth's orbits around the Sun, or inclined to the Earth's ecliptic by more than 5